Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the IELTS Plus English podcast, where today we're going to be talking all about digital learning. So I'm back in the office here in Korea. I had a wonderful time last week in the UK. In my parents' garden, we did that podcast episode, so thanks to everyone who left nice comments. I feel refreshed, as you could see in the video. It was really nice weather, a very natural landscape, lots of trees and grass, so I'm feeling great and ready to get back to work. Today, we have a really interesting topic, digital learning. Looking at today's vocabulary list, some really useful ones, very topic specific. E-learning, interactive, platform. These are words that are really going to get you some points when talking about digital learning in IELTS. Definitely a topic that comes up. And you can find this vocabulary, the vocabulary list, in my textbook, which is on www.britplus.net. So head over there, you'll be able to get the textbook. That also has my structures, of course, which I hope you'll find really interesting and I will be using today. So before we get into today's topic, digital learning, I do want to answer a student question. This is from a student on YouTube who gave me a comment, a very nice comment. And simply, her question was, how can I think in English? This is a huge topic, right? You can see a million videos on YouTube giving you tips for how to think in English. I've done my own video about it. So if you want, you can, on my YouTube channel, search for IELTS Plus Think in English, and you'll see my video there. But I will give you a few thoughts now, just so that you can perhaps, I don't know, maybe it's a bit different message to what you've heard before. But what I will say is, if you're not thinking in English, if you're not thinking in your target language, it means that in your brain, you have set up probably a 3-step process. So let's say, for example, I have my phone here and I look at the phone and I think in my brain, in my native tongue, native language, what the phone is. And then I translate in my brain to English. Okay, so we've got a 3-step process. You see the item, you say it in your language, and then you translate it to English. So what our goal is, of course, is to eliminate one of those steps. And if you see this object, your first thought is phone when you're speaking in English. Now, you know that's pretty obvious, but it's important to think about that because that's where you find the solution. You have to start seeing objects around you or having thoughts. An image of a phone comes into your head. The image or the actual object you must train yourself to trigger English when you're speaking in English. So that is where all of my tips come from, is that, stage 1 is you look around yourself. So I look around my office now. I see items and I label them in English. This is what you should be doing. You should be looking, okay, light, phone, iPad. You're labeling objects in English. That's the most basic level. The next level is as you're walking around or you're sitting there and you have thoughts, for example, very simple thoughts like I'm hungry or it's a nice day today. These simple comments on daily life. Okay, that's your next stage, is that you must start having them in English, training yourself to think of them in English. The final stage, and I'm kind of skipping, but these are the key points, is the final stage is that you start having the kind of running thoughts in your brain in English as much as possible. So for example, you might have a shower and think about your whole day in English. Go through the whole day. What did I do? How did I feel? What did I think? And do that in English. This step-by-step training will eventually train your brain to think more in English, and then it will start to happen in conversation. But I must stress, if you are someone who translates in your head, it's a long process. It will take time. So be patient and work hard. So I hope that helps. Maybe that gives you a bit of a new idea, but that's what I'll say for now. If you want more, head over to my video, and I'm going to give you a student challenge now. I do want to give you one today because you didn't get one last week. Part 1 style question. Have you ever learnt something online? Simply tell me yes or no and give me a detail. What was that thing? What did you learn online? Let me know in the comments. I will check your answer and give you feedback. Great, let's get to work. It's a bit of a long introduction, so let's get to work. And part 1 questions. First question is, do you prefer digital learning or traditional classroom learning? That's quite a tough question, but I would say because of the type of things I like to learn, nowadays I probably prefer digital learning. I like to do things at my own pace, and I like to sit in somewhere that I'm comfortable, such as my office or at home, and use these platforms that are available. I think there are a number of wonderful e-learning sites nowadays. So I think for my own pacing, I prefer online learning. Okay, next question. Have you ever taken an online course? Well, yes, I've taken several online courses. Probably the first one that comes to my mind is an e-learning course for video editing. So video editing is a huge part of my life, my job. So I'm always trying to improve that. And I've taken several courses, but some of them have been on YouTube, just free courses, maybe very long videos, sometimes multiple hours. And that has helped me increase my ability in video editing. Okay, we'll go to a part 2. So I'm preparing 2 minutes now. That's ready. And today's question is, describe an online course or learning experience you have had. Okay, I think I'm going... Okay, I've got something in mind. No preparation time as usual. And 2 minutes are on the clock. So my time starts now. I'd like to tell you about my experience learning Spanish. About 7 years ago, it was my marriage and honeymoon. And for our honeymoon, we went to Spain. I've never learned Spanish before in my life, so I had nothing. But I decided before we went to Spain, my wife and I both decided that we would learn Spanish together through Duolingo. So, for quite a long period, perhaps 6 months leading up to our honeymoon, we took this kind of self-paced Duolingo course, following it step by step, learning vocabulary in preparation for our honeymoon. So let me tell you a little more about this Duolingo course. Firstly, Duolingo is a wonderful learning platform that is free, but there is a paid tier, but we took the free version, and as I said, you've got this kind of self-paced, but they do want you to make daily progress course, and they've got courses for several languages, but we chose the one for Spanish. Duolingo provides amazing courses that are designed by professionals, and it's fun. It's kind of gamified, so it's interesting. There's nice images, and it feels like you're progressing all of the time. And I was just really impressed by their platform. I thought the whole thing was very engaging. So for me personally, during those 6 months, I had a wonderful time, really enjoyed learning Spanish, and I felt like I improved. And when we went to Spain, I was able to use Spanish, and we were able to use different vocabulary here and there. And okay, time's up. Good. I was happy with that answer. I felt that we had a good mix of experience in the past section and focusing on the present and describing this platform in the description section. You'll know this from my textbook. You'll be able to follow that structure. And yeah, I was happy with that. I was also able to add some vocabulary from today's list. That's what I'm doing, by the way. If you're watching the video and sometimes I glance down to my right, I am checking my vocabulary list because I want to make sure that I'm using this and demonstrating to you how you can use this in your answers. I also have the questions here. So let's move to part 3 and our first question. How do you think digital learning has changed education? I would say digital learning has made education available to everyone. That's such an important point, that it's democratized learning and allowed everyone in the world to have access to some extent to good learning materials. I think this is really important, and a good example of this is what I mentioned earlier, which is Duolingo. And they've allowed people all around the world to experience new languages for free. Good. Okay, next question. What are some challenges associated with digital learning? I suppose the biggest challenge is motivation and accountability. When I say accountability, very often these are self-paced, courses that you must do it. You don't have anyone telling you to go to the next step or to do the next task. Most of the time, that's the case. So big challenge is motivation. And you have to be very strict. You have to be diligent. I have experienced that myself with various courses that I've taken, that sometimes I have no real reason to go to the next step or progress, but I've got to motivate myself. So I'd say that's the biggest challenge. You'll notice with a lot of these part 3 questions, they do ask for the plural. They ask for challenges, problems, positives. I've mentioned this before, but one of the strategies I use to simplify and make logical answers is I always say one of the main challenges is, and then I focus on one. One of the main positives is, and then I focus on one. And this is so that I can keep to my structure, the one that's in my textbook, and make sure I'm giving a very logical, clear answer with an example. So that's why I don't list several challenges. Last question. How can teachers make online classes more engaging for students? Firstly, I think it's really important that the courses are the lessons or courses are interactive. I think having some engagement between the teachers and students is vital. It's crucial to keep people motivated. That's what I try to do with this podcast is if you comment, I will reply as soon as I can and give you feedback on your answers. I also think having multimedia elements in the courses is important. So not only videos, but PDFs, you can download the PDF textbooks, or there's some kind of tests that you can interact with, at the end of units or something like that. So making sure there's lots of variety and interactivity. Okay, well, I'm happy with all of that. I think that we used plenty of vocabulary today. That we had a lot to talk about. I think we were kind of catching up after last week's bonus episode. And that's everything for today. So I really hope you enjoyed. Of course, let me know if you have any questions or comments. Of course, answer today's student challenge. That's really important for you, and I will give you feedback. And I hope you have a lovely week. Study incredibly hard. And next week, we'll be talking about dreams. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.